Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Please, sorry again, Linda is not well. I think both of them. We was reported on Tuesday at the council. Both Linda and Frank are not well. And she sent an apology for this evening as well. So,
Okay, we can start with
get straight on with the agenda. In accordance with the openness of local government regulations 2014, this meeting is live streamed and may otherwise be recorded, filmed, or communicated in other media platforms. Recording of this meeting will be made available to Council on Council's YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. Both councillors and officers in attendance are reminded to make full use of and speak clearly into the microphones available at all times. A reminder that mobile phones should be turned off or put in silent mode. Those present at the meeting should refrain from telephone calls.
Okay, there's no members of the public, so you don't need that one. Okay, so we go to your agenda.
So, on to agenda, first item is
Apologies.
apologies, obviously.
Apologies
You,
being received from Councillor Frank Baldley, Councillor Linda Baldley, Councillor Adams and Councillor Charlesworth.
Sorry, you said Councillor Adams, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Thank you.
and I understand there is apology from Councillor Charlesworth as well.
That's correct, yes. Yep.
Charlesworth.
Yep. Okay, so
Okay,
next item, appointment of substitutes.
appointment, any appointment of substitute, no, there isn't any substitutes.
None have been received, Chair.
Declaration of interest.
That's
No?
none. Thank you.
Thank you. Minutes of previous meeting. Thank you. Action list from previous meeting.
There is no action this in the previous meeting, which
There was one thing, yes, Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Chairman. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Darling for her update that she sent out at the last meeting, which was unfortunately cut very short. But there were one or two things in that update which I'd just like to refer to. Thank you to the officers for sending the letter to our MP and for his reply. But in the update from Councillor Darling, thank you very much, it does refer to the action being taken by the police. Now, we've had the police here talking to us at our local forum. And it says here that there's liaison going on between the police, the NPCC, the ministers and the Home Office, and passing on any concerns. It is my understanding from our forum that the police are, because they are in such a difficult position with the trials being run in November and not coming back until after they've finished. The police are in a very difficult position and therefore have taken or are taking no action unless an accident is taking place which is reported to them. And that's a concern because we have had a number of incidences reported to us as councillors, which we then have suggested that the resident goes to the police and gets a crime number so that it can be officially registered. And I think the committee ought to send another letter to our local police force to say, could they please ensure that any resident who is having an accident or being injured from an e-scooter is actually reporting it, that this information is going out, that residents need to report to the police to get a crime number in order that they have the evidence to take forward. Because at the moment, that's not happening.
Can I come?
Thank you, Chair.
Ms Gill.
Thank you, Chair. An update from my perspective, Councillor Lloydell. We had a visit recently from the Police and Crime Commissioner who visited the offices and met with some members. During the course of that, the issue of e-scooters was raised. The difficulty for the police is that there is no agreed view on what electric scooters are. So there's a question, does the Road Traffic Act apply to them? Are they vehicles? Or more importantly, are they motorised vehicles? Or do they just fall under this general pedal cycle legislation? We were informed by the PCC that what is happening is that officers, on the first occasion they see somebody, will warn them. On the second occasion they see them, they will confiscate the e-scooter. Whether that is actually happening on the ground, I don't know. But they are very conscious that this is a real issue, and the PCC organisation and the police, through the National Police Chiefs Council, are pushing to get some legislation in place. In terms of anybody that is injured, there is a problem because it's not necessarily a crime, because road traffic collisions are not recorded as crimes. So whilst they may well be able to report it to the police, it's unlikely that they will get a crime number, because technically it's not a crime. So if you're driving down the road and have an accident in your car and collide with somebody or another car and somebody's injured, that's not recorded as a crime. It's not an assault in the sense of an ABH or a GBH. It will be recorded as a road traffic matter, so there will be a record, but I'm just conscious that we shouldn't be telling members of the public that they will get a crime number. They will get a reference number. It's not a crime number. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, just come back there. I think it's important that we are telling residents that they need to report it so that they get a reference number. And even if it's not recorded as a crime, it needs to be reported to the police, because the police cannot do anything in the future if they haven't got any evidence. And it's all their work will go forward on any evidence that they have to their hand. Now, okay, if you're saying it's not a crime, even though they go down the Ayleston Lane faster than the bikes go down the Ayleston Lane. I actually, the other day, watched an altercation between a bike and an e-scooter because one ran the other off the pavement. And that was lovely to see. I've got to say that they are actually arguing amongst themselves now. Both of them doing well over the permitted 4 miles an hour, which is allowed on the footpath, I understand. So, you know, I'm urging everybody and the council and the police now that they should be telling residents to report so that the evidence can be collected. Thank you, Chair.
We saw Councillor Kaufman
Lily Kaufman.
and then Councillor Darling.
Thanks, Chair. I agree with everything Councillor Lloydell has said. Mr Gill, you said it isn't a crime. I would have thought that dangerous driving would be under the guise of a crime, or am I wrong?
When you talk about a crime in respect of an assault, you're looking at offences against the person. It's not an offence against the person just because somebody's been injured. Dangerous driving is a specific criminal offence because it is in the Road Traffic Act and other legislation that accounts for it. But generally, a road traffic collision, a collision between a vehicle and a person or a vehicle and a vehicle, is not classed as a crime. It's classed as a collision. It is recorded. But unless the police can prove that there is driving without due care and attention or something like that, then it wouldn't go before the courts.
I think the basic problem is that the information is not going through to the police. And I think that's the basic thing, so we really ought to advise our residents to inform the police. Thank you.
Councillor Darling was.
Okay, Bill,
It's got to take the scooters then.
Because the scooters are illegal because they are not approved. The only time you can utilise a scooter is on private land with the permission of the landowner. So on the public highway, and bearing in mind the public highway goes from building line to building line, hedgerow to hedgerow. So if you park your vehicle on the pavement and there's double yellow lines on the road, you'll still get a ticket because it covers the whole expanse. And it's on that basis that they confiscate them. But there is this issue, is it a mechanically propelled vehicle? Because there's no legislation that permits them to enforce for excessive speed of a e-scooter or whatever.
Thank you.
Bill Ball.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. I asked the Commissioner purposely about scooters and other forms of transport. I listened very carefully to his answer. She's fine, I respect that. But I said to him, have you communicated that with your area commanders? So what him saying in policy, if he doesn't pass it down through the ranks, he's never got it implemented. And I think if Mr. Gill refers to the notes of that meeting, the Commissioner's mind, the Secretary, was taking notes all the while. I would hope that information is passed down to the area commanders so they can actually act on the Commissioner's advice.
Councillor Lloydale, do you will still want the letter to go to Commissioner?
I can't see any point now.
If I can just interject,
I would like the police to still give out reference numbers to residents. That is important. Obviously, they can't give out, as it's just been explained, they can't give out a crime number. But I think the letter should go so that they are doing something very proactive there. Because my feeling from the meeting, members' meeting, the forum meeting, was that the police weren't going to do anything. They were going to wait for this November to come out. I understand the predicament they're in. As the constable said, if we do something and take them to court, and then this comes out in November, that they're going to be legalised, the police are going to have egg all over their faces. But I think at the moment we should be advising residents and the police to take evidence and record everything and to give out reference numbers so that we are collating evidence. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. We'll let Mr. Gill clarify on the legal side, and I think
We'll move on from there.
no, yeah, the only point I was going to make, Councillor Lloydell, is that I'm actually meeting with the local police inspector, the new police inspector, next week on the 4th, along with Mrs. Court. We can express your concerns to her, see what response we get from her, and if appropriate, we can send a message back to you to say what the position is.
Thank you, Chair. As long as that is recorded and it becomes official documentation, so that we've got evidence that we've taken that action, I would appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, we move on. Just on the action list, we have number 3. The additional use for equality, that's still ongoing?
Yes, I can give you an update during the presentation, Chair, if that's okay.
Fine. Right. So the next item on agenda is petition deputation. Any? No?
No.
License regulatory update. This is just an update because we had a report last meeting, if you read the minutes. So this should be an update. So please.
Mr. Wells.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I thought it was quite well received last time when I gave you an overview of some of the work that we're doing within the team, the regulatory services team. So that covers licensing, environmental health and private sector housing. So I've tried to keep it sort of reasonably high level, not all the minutiae and detail. So as you can see on there, one of the important critical areas we have is food. We're all here, most of you were here in June when we went through the food delivery plan, which is based on Food Standards Agency recovery. This report that's through Q1, that's the first few months of the year, and now through Q2, because we've moved on from there. All the high risk and non-compliant premises have been inspected. Along with that, we're triaging new businesses. So in Q1 alone, we had 30 new businesses registered with us. And the idea of triaging is we can risk assess, ask some questions, see what it is they're doing, what's the risk associated with that, have we confidence in what they're about. And of those, 4 have been targeted for inspection. We've still received complaints, as you can see there, so food substance in an article, loaf of bread, for example, that you don't want to see, and we deal with those straight away with the manufacturers, suppliers. A lot of scanning going on, so we're trying to move towards this agile working, so we can actually go out there and actually work off mobile devices, access files and so forth. We started as requested last time, members through the bulletin every quarter, and I've given you some retail actual scores on the food hygiene rating system. So just for your assistance, go from 0, that's urgency improvement necessary, to 1, which is major improvement, 2, improvement necessary, 3, generally satisfactory, 4 is good, and then 5 is very good. Yes, sir.
Just those first 3 categories, 0, 1, 2.
Yes.
Is there any action that's taken to try and bring those out of those categories so that we've only got 3s, 4s and 5s?
So they're the ones that are identified as high risk because they're not performing the compliance level is generally set at 3 and above. Right. Just for your information. So that's those 3 have been targeted.
First point.
Yes. No problem.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sorry, Chair, could I just have a bit of clarity, please? Scanning records move towards agile working. Could you just explain? I am presuming that this is coming out of the pandemic where you were looking at records and now you're actually going back out and working in the community with them. Is that correct? Or have I got that wrong?
I think it's not quite correct. So the idea is that actually records in paper form would be electronic. So all our previous records and their inspections and so forth would be on a device like this. We go out and see them, we perform the inspection, and we can update the records without using paper, and then we can issue them with a score on the day and an email with a report attached to it. The old way of doing it is very much paper-based, so it's just moving towards actually we can work out and about more often rather than being in an office. So the pandemic sort of set up some of the new working streams, and obviously with the pending office move, that sort of followed that through.
Okay, fine. And what does the asterisk mean at total in scope and scheme? Normally as an asterisk there is something missing.
There is, I think that ran out of room, it's probably come off the page, so I do apologise for that. So care homes, for example, don't fall under the scope of the scheme, so they are inspected, they are reported on, but they fall outside the food hygiene rating system.
Thank you, Chair.
Definitely gone.
Chair, the food hygiene rating scores, the noughts, ones and twos, I think, if I heard correctly, 3 complies, anything below 3 doesn't comply. As these, as I've seen in the past, are public records, if you care to look at it, one can look and see and find it. I wonder if it would be helpful in future to encourage people to get out of noughts, ones and twos, if you'd be kind enough to publish in the report to us the noughts, ones and twos, because it's they're published in any case, and I think any publicity that we can give to the nought, ones and twos will encourage them to get to 3s and above. I assume that's legal, as I can look them up on.
Yeah, no, just come out.
Mr. Gill.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, we could publish them, but in fact, you'll see that they're actually published in the Leicester Mercury on a regular basis. You will find a whole list of premises that are not compliant, and you will also see the other side, those premises that are compliant. What might be worth considering is some sort of scheme that those that retain their 5-star on a regular basis are promoted and given some kudos for doing that. One of the things to remember about non-compliance is not just about the food, it's about the management style, and quite often scores are low because of the very nature of the building that they are occupied. Because it's very difficult for some of these buildings to be maintained to a very high standard, because some of them, they're old, small rooms, etc. So it's a combination of factors, but the officers do work with them to try and improve them on a regular basis. So, they will go and make contact and set out an action plan. And of course, the ultimate sanction is that if they're that bad, we will close them, and we will have no hesitation if we think they pose a risk. And we'll immediately close them down.
Does that mean we can put on a list then, so someone may want to use what's on that list? I agree with everything you said, those on the 5 should get the kudos. But I think there's some people in the local area who would like to know there's a nought, ones and twos. There's not that many of them.
I think one of the frustrations in most like that, Chair, is that there's no legal requirement to display the store on the door.
That's right.
So I would encourage people, if they're going out to eat, it's not somewhere they frequently frequent, you check the scores before you go if you're concerned about the hygiene standards and the performance of the managers there.
Some of us may have a piece of paper that we send out that may like to indicate the nought, ones and twos.
I'm happy to report on poor performance, that isn't a problem, and as Mr. Gill said, we're looking to the future to introduce a sort of top performer award over a quarter, for example, to reward those that retain 5 and actually perhaps so to encourage that performance. So,
Good idea.
yeah.
I think that will be publicity enough, Mr. Corfu. Right. Carry on.
Yes. Thank you. So, very quickly on selective licensing, you can see the number of properties there, the applications received. Those are empty at the moment, licences issued. So some of the priorities now around actually securing the remaining applications, enforcing against those that haven't applied, but also issuing those licences to make sure that they're being done, and rectifying any standards that need improving. So that's the priorities for their team there. They have produced the first newsletter. You've seen that a few weeks ago. That's how to find out information, who to contact. We're going to use that around actually sharing information with you, things around new requirements, in new rules, guidance. So carbon monoxide is the latest one, and the new standard paper. Just as a sharing information. The next slide is the successful energy programs like it's called Green Homes Grant. So it's split into different funds. We've been successful in bidding for these, and as you can see, it's significant money around there. So I'll try to break down there for your reference in terms of the applications received. But it's probably about 6 weeks out of date now, so it needs updating for next time. And clearly from there you can see that actually we're looking at quite a few measures which will help supplement. So sorry, thank you.
I have a question again about asterisk. Under add to underspend, there is an asterisk against it. What is the significance of that asterisk?
At the time that was written in, we were trying to access that from the roll it into the future programme.
And you were successful doing that?
Correct.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so air quality. Last time I showed you the charts from the monitoring station. I'm pleased to report that we've just raised an order up for hosting the air quality data live, and that'll be on the UK Air Quality website. So that's all the share on the country. Information is on there, and when that is done, so basically I pull the information out of the A6, there's a monitor on the A6 and the one at South Wixton by Canal Street on the Baby Road there. I will send the link out and I'll do a little item for the members bulletin so you can all access it. We'll also do some press and some publicity through our normal channels so that people are aware they can actually see what the levels are, how they change, what impact the weather has, for example. So that's a really good bit of good news, and that's actually funded from developers, so we're not paying for that, which is even more encouraging in my view. Yes.
Another question. The ASR, perhaps you could tell me what the ASR is. I think that's our annual report.
It is.
But appraisals completed, passed to DEFRA for approval. What was the outcome of that? Was it approved?
It was a very positive result that we received from that one. It's the annual status report. It's a very glorified title, but essentially it is an update on performance and what we've done over the year. And they were really pleased with the work we've done, and actually they were answered our proposals moving forward, so that's really encouraging.
Congratulations on that success.
It was a lot of hard work because this is one of the easiest to fill in. But, yes, Councillor Bolton.
Sorry, Councillor Bolton. Well,
A lot about from town centre manager about the footfall in centres and shopping centres, and also the fact that air quality management is also in those areas as well, the same users won't be used. I don't understand what they use. Is that being reported as well? So we know what that is.
So we're working with, at the moment, you know where the measuring devices are. We're going to put the additional 2 on the A6 and Newton Lane as requested. That's in progress now. And then I'm talking with, Jeffrey Kenyon, who works in the bar. So he's looking at getting some funding for town centre Zephyrs, as we call them. So they will record footfall, but also record particulates and nitrogen oxide levels within town centres as well. And that will complement the work that we're doing.
But we haven't got them yet.
No, they're not in place yet, no. Okay, we'll turn to licensing, if I may. So as you see tonight, there's a few policy updates and we'll talk through those. Not a great to report on that. Taxi driver, we revoked a licence and the appeal was upheld and his licence is reinstated. The magistrates thought we were being a bit too firm on this gentleman. That is what it is. But, I attended court and presented the evidence as I saw it for my decision, and that was overturned on the basis of their information. It said he'd had a bad day, we'll probably not go there, but I just wanted to report that because it's obviously, it's not necessarily positive, but we took action and actually it's been overturned, so to let you know. We're undertaking an audit on order 2003, which is the premises licence, selling alcohol and the like, and reviewing all the fees and charges in this year. So that's not only what we do charge, but making sure that those that should be registered are or licensed and they're paying the appropriate fee. In terms of applications, we're getting in the region of about 40-ish per month, a variety of different areas. So obviously taxes, but also there's others around premise licence, changes in DPSs and so forth. We've also done the the annual fees. What concerned me slightly was actually we weren't effectively being cost neutral in the way we're doing it, so we've upped the fees a bit to be more proportionate with others. I think that was reported at the early meetings you've had this week as well. And there's this big campaign at the moment about deceitful pet sellers. There's a bit of law that's come in which has actually been pulled through on the animal policy update that we've done, the animal welfare policy, just to reassure members that actually we say that seriously and we can apply that to future applications. There's a service review that's just going to start as well, and that's about understanding demand performance, where some of the changes lie around system use. Sorry, yeah, sure.
This pet fishing, there's a strange look, there's a shop opening up in Rosemead Drive that seems to be selling services of breeding animals or whatever.
Yeah, we're aware of it.
Is that covered by, do you know about it?
Yes.
Yeah, we know about the, yeah.
Sorry? No.
And part of my, as Mr. Gill will reinforce, like he's saying to us, part of me is actually getting out there and finding where these places are. You know, during the pandemic it was difficult, challenging, but now we've got no excuse, we need to find them, and we need to make sure they are actually registered or licensed, and if they don't comply, then they'll be operating. So, just to reassure you. And then finally, environmental health. I say finally, but we dealt quite interestingly with the body that was found in the house, and of course, as you might, sorry.
Sorry, Chair, can I just go back to the licensing, the last bullet point there, seizure of dangerous dogs? And are we having an increase in that amount of seizures taking place in the borough? I mean, you've only got to look in the papers, usually every day across the country, a child or a person is being attacked. There's an increase in people owning unsuitable, I think that's probably the best word for it, unsuitable animals, dogs, as pets. Are we seeing a problem in the borough with that?
Not generally, and it's no more significant than pre-pandemic. It was, we had a lot of issues with dog owners having to, or get dogs during lockdown and then releasing the dogs. So we had a bit of a spike with strays, to be fair, but that's calmed down now. But this was just a one-off incident, but it took quite a bit of time to sort, but we dealt with it.
Okay.
With the help of others, so.
Right, thank you.
I think in this case, it was actually a dog that was dangerous in terms of its breed, as opposed to a dog that had acted dangerously. If the information came through to us that there was potential a unlawful breed of dog property, and we liaised with the police and a warrant was issued and it was seized, as opposed to an incident where a pet sort of went mad in the garden and attacked a child.
Okay, right, thank you.
Environmental health, so there's quite a bit of work going on around actual welfare burials, perhaps not unsurprisingly, given where we've been. So, as you might imagine, that takes quite a bit of time from house appearances to treating pests, trying to identify next of kin. So, work going on there. The mainline electrification project, that should be up and running now. And I understand that they're putting in the preliminary plant and site in advance of that. So, but we went along to the presentations like some members did as well.
Alder.
Yeah, my understanding correctly, in all the budget for, we think 3 welfare burials a year. But we try and recoup that cost from relatives or the estate or somewhere else. Are we still running at that sort of level, or are we?
Can I answer this one? Yeah, could do this. Actually, we don't budget for anything at the start of the year, but we are able to fund funerals as they come through, because obviously we don't know how many we're going to have. What we can say is that the the officers have worked particularly hard, and they've managed to come up with an arrangement with a certain funeral company, I'm not going to name, but the position is that they've managed to reduce the actual cost of a welfare funeral from about £1,250 to £750. So that sort of eases the burden. And you're quite right, Councillor Bolger, we do, wherever possible, seek to recover any costs that are incurred through the estate, whether that be through cash, etc., that we might find in the house, insurance policies, and quite often what happens is, if there is no next of kin, then we publish our welfare funerals online, and we get the errant companies coming along looking, and quite often they do find a relative for us, which enables us to recoup that money.
Yeah.
A bit of good news, you're probably aware that we struggled to recruit for an EHO. I'm delighted to inform you all that actually successfully recruited for what we term a technical officer, and this person is a month off being qualified as an EHO. So we're now revising the role back up to an EHO post in order to attract that person. The great bit is that she is actually food qualified. So that reduces our reliance on alternative arrangements, which are put in place because of our scarcity of having qualified food officers. So, and she'll be in post from the end of November. So probably bring her along at one of the meetings so you can meet her all. So, the microchipping event unfortunately didn't occur. I think the supersonic boom event was cancelled or postponed for a reason. We're starting work now on a new contract for the dog warden service. So as you're probably aware, it's with Animal Care Services. It was put in place for the initial 3 years with an extension in April. Just before April, I exercised that right and I had the extension for a year. And we've now got to go back out to get some quotes in for the service moving forward. And as you're probably aware, it's quite a cost-effective arrangement. We've got costs of about £5,500 a year to do all the dog stuff for us. What I'm in the process of doing also is files of information around where they go, what they do, how long they're out there. And we've now got them authorised so they can actually issue fixed penalty notices. I think that was raised in the previous meeting. So I'll bring that to you or send it through the members' bulletin at the appropriate time. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Move on to next item, which is animal licensing policy.
This probably is one of the three points main significant changes, and they're around actually updating the operational guidance, which overall just creates a more robust animal welfare regulation system. Just by way of explanation in there, you'll see the mention of Lucy's Law, which means that anyone wanting to get a new puppy or kitten in England must now buy it direct from a breeder or consider adopting from a rescue centre. So what we're trying to do is compile all the legislation together, provide the officers with guidance by which they can then make a decision based on best guidance and information we've got, and that sort of reinforces the work that we're doing on that. So I don't really want to go into any more detail. I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Lily Kaufman, then David.
Thank you. Thank you for this draft report, Mr. Wells. Can I be assured that no animals, wild animals or tame animals, will be put down without a vet's authorisation? I can't seem to see it in this draft report, but can I be assured that that doesn't happen?
I think the question has been asked previously. I think Councillor Lloyd asked. And the answer is no. But Mr. Gill?
The position is, certainly with regard to animals, dogs which are collected and taken to animal aid, then they will not euthanise them unless there is a good reason. So there was recently one where the animal was so poorly and so ill that it would not have survived, and on that basis then we did authorise them. it's very difficult to give a blanket assurance that no animal will be euthanised, because we have to depend on the circumstances of each individual situation. So if we got called to an accident on the highway with a horse and a car, and the horse is really, really seriously injured, then we may have to consider doing it, because there is no prospect of the animal recovering. But it is the last resort, is what I will say.
I understand that, obviously. But I would like this, you know, I don't think it should be just anybody's decision. I think it should be a vet's decision and not just anybody.
It always is a vet's decision, Councillor Cobham.
Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that it would be a 5-5p and that would be there. As you can see, in appendix 1, we have approved list of vets. And that's what I'm just respecting animal welfare and health, but also didn't need that.
Councillor Carter.
Mine's really just a question of clarification. On page 26, it talks about different types of licences that the council issues. And I noticed there's dog breeding establishment licence and there's animal boarding establishment licences, but there doesn't seem to be any licence for cat breeding. Is there a particular reason why we don't need to licence cat breeding establishments?
I don't think there is any.
As far as I'm aware, dog breeding there's actually legislation specific around dog breeding, so that's what that's covered. And in general, licensing those not covered separately, so by default, we would expect council forward with the animal boarding. Boarding is looking after while you're away, for example, and the breeding is obviously in terms of actually producing others. So I'll have to get back to you on that, if I may, to give you a proper clarified answer.
The reason it sprang to mind was because in my early years on development control, we actually had an issue of somebody who was breeding cats in the borough, and that was actually ended up being dealt with as a development control issue rather than a welfare issue. But I just thought that seemed to be an anomaly that was missing from the document.
If I could just respond on that, I'm just doing a quick Google search, and it says, unlike dogs, no licence is required to breed and sell cats.
Okay, Councillor Bolter, please.
Oh, yes. Just for information, Chair, on page 34, you've got Wellground Inventory on Central Avenue. Not operating at the moment on address. Right. And just as a matter of interest, yes, I do keep poultry, but I keep less than 50, so I don't have to, you can interest in that.
We'll come round and count.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll come and count later, Councillor Bolter.
Yes. Going to keep an eye on it. Okay, Mr. Wells.
Thank you. We'll make those amendments from before, and then we'll be over in a couple of weeks to check out. Is that right?
I'll keep you doing some numbers on.
Patch them over to next door.
Is that
Yeah. So basically, the policy's there. I think it's in your recommendation for you to approve, hopefully. Thank you.
okay? Recommendation is that we agree that it goes out for consultation, and any amendments can be carried out with the chair of the committee. All agreed?
Yeah.
Sorry, the recommendation, Chair, is actually to adopt the policy and then delegate any amendments necessary to myself and the Chair.
Right, sorry, adopt and then it goes for consultation.
No, it doesn't need to go out for consultation because it's based on legislation and the guidance that is set. So what it's saying is the policy be adopted.
Yes.
And then any amendments to be made by me in consultation with the Chair.
Right, okay.
So can we have
Agree with that?
Well, you need someone to move it. Thank you. Someone to second it.
Second.
Thank you. And then to the vote.
All in favour, please, after all that. take it, Mr.
Councillor Kaufman,
Is abstaining.
are you in with the vote?
No, I'm sorry, I thought.
You wake up now, okay.
That's your,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank
Next item, please.
This new machine, I can't operate two things.
Charitable collections policy. There's little change in this apart from an introduction of the Charities Act in 2022. And implementation of that will take place in 3 tranches, which is autumn, next spring and next autumn. It's not a major overhaul, however, it introduces tweaks to the current law and process to remove any unnecessary regulatory burden on businesses. So that's essentially the same as it was, but just with that included. So, no questions, thank you.
I move it.
Move.
Subject to what was down there and you said just now, Chair.
Can I just make a comment on the recommendation, if that's possible? It says that delegated authority be granted to the head of law and democracy to consider any other amendments as may be necessary in consultation with the chair of the Licensing and Regulatory Committee. It would seem to me to be more beneficial if that delegation was changed to the similar delegation that I have under the Constitution to amend it, where I have a delegated authority to amend the Constitution to reflect a change of fact or law. Because these policies quite often will have a change in legislation, which means that we have to go in, or if, for instance, it says in the policy that the appropriate person to reach a decision is the head of law and democracy, and then they decide to change my name back to head of law and government, then I would have to come to the committee or get the chair's approval to do that. And it just seems overly burdensome, because what we would normally do on these, if a policy doesn't change, we review it anyway, and we will just say that there's been no substantive change and put the date on the legend that the policy has been looked at, there's no changes to be made, and it's been signed off. So it would be easier administratively if that recommendation was the same as the one that I'd got in the Constitution. Unless anybody's got any huge objection.
Does it mean, are you saying to consult the chair, like it says, you want to do away with that?
What I'm saying is
the reason that it doesn't have to be in a committee, does it? Chair can be consulted without go to a meeting, can it?
But if the change is a change of law, then it doesn't matter what the chair thinks, because the chair can't influence the decision. If the law changes, I've got to change it. So this is a bit of a pointless exercise going to Councillor Broadley or yourself saying, can you, I need to speak to you about this change in the law, because you can't say, no, you can't change it. I've just got to do it.
Okay, before bringing speakers in, then even if it's done that way, it'll be reported back, this is what you've done.
We can do, we can report retrospectively if that's what members like.
Okay, then I've got
I think it was
Councillor Lloydell. And
Yes, Chair, I, with all respect, I do have concerns over that. I can understand where you're coming from, in that if it's a change in the law, it will go ahead regardless. But I think the chair should still be informed. Consultation probably, but informed definitely. But this leads to a sort of a doubt in other areas, because I wouldn't like to think that if it wasn't a law change, the chair was not being consulted. So you could end up in a situation of you're not letting the chair know what is happening. And I think that is a dangerous situation to be in. I understand you don't want to end up with a lot of bureaucracy, but I still think out of common courtesy, the chair should be informed of what a change in the law is and consulted on anything else that isn't a change of the law. I may be being awkward, but I mean, that is the right of the chair. The chair is in fact the one that's in charge of the committee, and ultimately the chair is the one that bears the responsibility of the committee. So for them not to be informed undermines the position of chair, in my opinion. Thank you.
I've got 3 other speakers. Are your comments,
Councillor Bolter, Councillor Carter and Jeffrey Kaufman, the same on those lines, what Alan said.
I was just going to agree with Eleanor.
Okay,
If
anything different?
yes, my comment is slightly different. Whilst taking on board Councillor Lloyd-Earl's point, it does seem to me that in this particular policy, Mr. Gill has a point, because on page 40, and as Mr. Wells has already pointed out, there is anticipated, that's right, yes, it is anticipated that there will be change during the year. We already know, or Mr. Wells has already told us, actually page 39, that the implementation will take place in 3 tranches, including autumn 2023, spring 23 and autumn 23. So it would seem prudent to give Mr. Gill that ability. But I do take on board Councillor Lloyd-Earl's point about the chairman being involved and informed. Maybe.
If I can just come back on that, Chair.
Can I get Councillor Bolter's point? Then you can come back.
Mine is slightly different, so carry on.
It was just that I wanted to go back to what Councillor Carter was saying about page 40. When I was speaking about changes in law, we have to do them. When I'm speaking about changes of fact, on the bottom of page 40, it says National Exemption Order Scheme. Certain collections are not regulated by the council. The Minister for the Department for Digital, Culture and Media Sport is responsible. If in 3 months' time, government decide to change the name of that department to something else, then that is a question of fact. And that's the point that I would change. It doesn't alter anything in the policy. It is a change of fact. And if it says in a policy that the matter is dealt with by the licensing team and the licensing team's name is changed to something else, that is a question of fact. It doesn't alter the fundamental parts of the policy, because any changes to the way the policy is applied or discretion director would have to come to committee to approve it. I bring the Constitution regularly to Council for updates and changes. But we've just done the recent one on the special severance payments. But they'll constantly change the Constitution to reflect changes. So we had a restructure, we had a Deputy Chief Executive, and then we had 2 directors. I changed all of that using my power. It didn't alter anything within the Constitution. Didn't grant any more power to officers or to members or take power from anybody. It was just to replicate the Constitution, the structure of the council and how the council works. Because on a big document like that, I'm often asked, well, can you show me what's changing? And if we went through and changed 300 odd pages and I had to highlight what was in, it just becomes bureaucratic and unnecessary. And that's all I'm asking for. The ability to change facts, not to change the policy.
Okay, well, at this item, the recommendations is what it is. So will
you can't, sorry.
Well, can I finish? I think best thing to do is maybe bring this as a separate issue to the future committees, and hopefully the chair herself is here as well. Then we can have a bit of debate and agree on things. At the moment, and this item, we'll keep the recommendation as it is. Councillor Bolter.
Yes, Chair, and it's a difficult situation. I don't see the point in going through policies if nothing's changed. What should they come to us? A simple comment on it that so policy, nothing's changed. And if something is changed on one of these, on fact or law or something like that, that could be stated as well. The policy remains the same apart from these changes. And then we can look at that if we want to look at the whole lot. I can't see the point in publishing the whole lot every time if there's only a certain committee has changed its name or certain departments changed officers or something. It's a matter of fact or law. If the law changes, fine, we need that in so we know what it is. But rather than replace everything.
Yeah, that bit can be.
My point, Chair, was on page 45, no calling zones, it says, halfway down, error, hyperlink reference not valid.
And that's because it's connected to the hyperlink. The hyperlink is not copied over, so we can amend that. When this is published online, there will be a hyperlink in there that people can click on and it will take them to the appropriate website.
Right. Okay. Using language I don't understand.
So, okay,
Councillor Lloyd was just raised hand.
Quickly.
Just come back, Chair. I think I agree with what you've just said. I think the Chair should be informed of this. The Chair should be consulted over what we have just suggested.
Yes.
Maybe
I think
this needs
what
to
I
be
said,
considered.
Councillor Lloyd, what I said on this item will take the recommendation as it is.
Yes.
Maybe future committees or next committee, we can have this little item as an item so that other members which were not here know what we're talking about, and then we can agree on things. But this item will take the recommendation as published, as on the paper.
Right.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I think Councillor Kaufman moved it.
Chair, I will move that and that this is taken as it is, as read in the paper here this evening.
Yes.
Because I know when I was chair of this licensing committee a number of years ago, I would have been unhappy with not being informed, maybe consulted.
Yes,
So I would say accept this as it is.
Yes.
And let it go and let the chair take part in any further debate on this.
Okay. You've been moved and seconded, all those in favour, as it is. Okay,
Okay,
that's
unanimous.
unanimous. Right. Next is charitable collections policy.
I think that's the one we've
That's the one we've just done. The next one.
Oh, yeah.
The next one is the special treatments policy.
So, a very glamorous name, isn't it, for things like agriculture, health, farmer and that sort of thing. It's called special treatments. They're all required to apply for public health and public safety grounds. As you can see, the only change in here is to reflect the latest guidance. So there's minor tweaks, nothing significant, because the bylaws that were made many years ago are still in force, and they're listed at the end just for clarity to applicants. Thank you.
I'll move this.
Moved it. Okay, Councillor Lloyd.
I'm sorry to be a nuisance, Chair. Can I just ask, things such as Botox, does that come under cosmetic skin piercing?
John.
Or is that now to be a separate area which we look at? Because there's a significant increase in what is happening these days, unfortunately.
Mr. Gill.
Yeah.
I think
There is an issue with the special treatments in the sense that they are very old, the legislation 1976. We had hoped that we could actually make some bylaws, microblading, lots of different things. Unfortunately, we took advice from a very experienced senior barrister, and the advice was that we couldn't do that. At a national level, they are looking at introducing new policies, new legislation to cover the sort of things that you're talking about, so your Botoxes and all those other treatments that take place. But we're currently waiting on national legislation.
So, Chair, does that mean then that they're not covered anywhere? Do they come under the national health guidance, or, I mean, at the moment, we seem to have them springing up all over the place, even having them parties in the house, bit like Tupperware, and that's really concerning.
It is concerning, and that's why the central government is looking at it, and they will be the ones that introduce the legislation. It's not a matter to be dealt with at a local level, because obviously you want a consistency of standard across the whole country. We have to wait until we have legislation nationally, and then it may well be that there is some flexibility in any regulations as to how we approach it, which obviously we'll consider when the legislation is passed.
Lily Kaufman.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask exactly the same question, and there was also lip filler as well. But we'll wait until central government gets themselves sorted out, and then we'll find out. Thank you.
Take your time. Bill Baldwin.
Yes, page 78, Chair. Is there a misprint here? Any person who offends against any of these bylaws shall be liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding £20. £20? It's not worthwhile, is it?
That's because they're bylaws, Councillor Bolter, and obviously they haven't been updated and reviewed. The process for updating and review is long and tortuous and very complex, because certain of them need to go to the Secretary of State. There is a new, quicker method of doing bylaws, but I'm not sure whether this falls into it. We can certainly have a look at it to see how we can improve it. And it may be that somewhere there's a saving provision in legislation which has replaced the bylaw of £20 with another fine, because quite often things are changed outside of the bylaws. But we'll certainly look at it and check what the...
Look at that, 'cause I mean, it's about 10 minutes of officer's time, isn't it?
Right, we've got no more questions. Anybody move the now this is similar kind of recommendation. Will anybody move it?
I've already moved it, actually.
Councillor Kaufman did move it earlier at the start.
Right.
So you want to second that?
Anybody second it? Kaufman. All those in favour?
Unanimous.
Again. And that's the end of the agenda. Thank you very much for your attendance, and declare the meeting closed. So,
yeah, just cross that off and put Vice Chair.
Places to eat, but I haven't discovered the two-star one.